Midnight Moon. Written by Suzana Thompson. Narrated by Sarah Sampino. Chapter 7. I gazed at the crystal necklace that Daphne had given me at the carnival. She had come into my tent alone and complimented me on my costume before pulling the crystal out of her purse. "Wear this too. It'll help to focus your energy." I had accepted the necklace because I thought it looked cool with my costume, although I had been surprised that Daphne would be into my fortune-telling act. She had always seemed like a reasonable, rational person. Now, nearly a month later, here I was discussing werewolves over the phone with her. "It's not only a man that can turn into a wolf. It is more than a wolf and more than a man." I thought she meant that it's both, but she says it's more than that. Since it's a supernatural creature, it has more than the natural abilities of either man or wolf. "Like what?" I asked. I hadn't noticed anything else unusual about Damien besides his exceptional hearing and sense of smell. "One thing they can do that wolves can't is heal quickly from injuries. Grandma's friend claims that the one he knew healed from a broken leg within days," Daphne said. "So all I have to do is break Damien's leg," I joked. "Then I'll know if he's a werewolf." "Or look at his shoulder," she suggested. "He should still have a scar there from when he was bitten during the attack." "How am I supposed to manage that?" I questioned. "It's not like I see him with his shirt off." "I'm sure that you can think of a way to change that," she remarked in a suggestive tone. "Daphne!" I was truly shocked at what nice, sweet Daphne was insinuating. "You don't have to go all the way," she assured me. "Just pull his shirt off while you're making out with him." "We have never made out," I informed her. "So it would be a little weird if I suddenly jumped his bones just to take his shirt off." "Really?" Daphne asked in disbelief. "Because there's this sexual thing going on between you. I saw it that day at school when you were talking about snowflakes." "We weren't talking about—" I broke off in agitation. "Just never mind. This sexual thing that you think we have doesn't exist, so the makeout session isn't going to happen. I'll come up with another plan. What else did your grandmother say about werewolves?" "Oh, this is interesting," Daphne told me excitedly. "They are still themselves in their wolf form. I thought they were just mindless beasts, but her friend said that they still know what they're doing. He says that the werewolf he knew used his wolf form to kill the guy who raped his sister. It was her word against his, and the guy was from a wealthy family while she was a nobody. He was going to get away with it, but then he was killed by a wolf. His wife witnessed the attack." "Are you saying that Blair was murdered?" I asked in shock. "If any of this is true, and if she was killed by a werewolf, all we have to go on is the story of an old man we don't even know," she reminded me. "He could be lying or senile for all we know." Who would want to murder Blair? I wondered, my imagination fired up by this new theory. "Maybe it wasn't planned," Daphne said. "Another thing he told my grandmother is that they sometimes lose control. That's the wild animal in them coming out. Anger becomes rage, especially around the full moon when their emotions are heightened. That's why his buddy wouldn't turn my grandmother's friend into a werewolf when he asked him to. He used to have a bad temper when he was young, and his buddy told him that he might not be able to control it if he became a werewolf." "He's one to talk after he murdered someone," I remarked. "What happened to him anyway?" "My grandma's friend doesn't know. He lost touch with him after he joined the Navy." "The werewolf joined the Navy?" I questioned in surprise. "Wasn't he worried about the other sailors seeing him change into a wolf every month?" "No!" Daphne laughed. "My grandma's friend joined the Navy." Hearing her laugh gave me the courage to ask how she was doing. I had been thinking about her often these past couple of days since I saw her in the hospital. She had made me promise not to tell anyone about her cancer, so that had prevented me from talking the situation over with Taylor the way I usually did. "I feel really good," Daphne said. "They won't know for a few weeks if the treatment worked, but at least it's not making me sick. and I'm hoping that my hair won't fall out." "Hopefully not," I told her, feeling awkward about not knowing what else to say. "I know you probably have homework to do, so I'll let you go." I felt so bad for her, as I wondered if she had sensed how uncomfortable I had become, but I took the opportunity she had given me to end the conversation. "Yeah, I better get started on it. Thanks for asking your grandma about werewolves for me. So, I'll talk to you again soon, okay?" "Hey, Clarissa," Daphne said hurriedly, like she was afraid I'd hang up on her. "Keep me informed about what's going on, even if you just send me a text. It's nice having something else to think about besides all this medical stuff." "Yeah," I agreed. "Absolutely." "My other friends aren't sharing as much about what they're doing," she explained. "I guess they don't want me to feel left out. I still see it on Facebook, but it's not the same as talking with them." Now I felt really terrible for her, but I tried to lighten the mood. "Well, you're the only one I can talk to about this. Everyone else would think I'm crazy." I decided that there was no need to tell her that Taylor knew about Damien possibly being a werewolf. "Right. So let me know if anything else happens, and try to get a look at his shoulder," she reminded me. "I will," I promised. Damien was in my backyard that night, and I watched him through my window. He stared up at me in return for a while, and then he laid down in the grass and seemed to be gazing up at the moon. I waited a while after I heard my parents go to bed before I snuck out to see him. "You should go home," I told him as I approached. He looked up at me but didn't move from his supine position. "Lay down beside me and let's look at the stars." "We can't see many stars from all the light pollution." Since he wasn't getting up, I sat down beside him. "We can see the moon," he stated. "Yeah." I glanced uneasily up at it. "So, how's your shoulder?" "My shoulder?" Damien sat up and turned his head to look at me. "From when you were injured in the attack," I said, choosing not to actually mention that it was an animal bite. "It's fine," he answered. "Will you go out with me tomorrow night?" "Tomorrow night?" I questioned, uncomprehendingly. "Friday night," he clarified. "Taylor's going out with Bryce Friday night," I informed him for no apparent reason. "Then you can go out with me," he said. "Maybe I have plans," I declared, trying to work up some annoyance toward him. "This is really short notice for a date." "I have plans too," he told me. Then he sprang into a crouch from his sitting position. I stared at him in astonishment until he quickly leaned forward and fused his lips to mine. There was no time to think, but instinct took over at that moment. It had me savoring the kiss that I used to fantasize about. I lost awareness of myself as I fell deeper into it. There was nothing to distract me from the sensations I was experiencing. The feel of his lips and the taste of his mouth had become my world in this nocturnal universe. I felt disoriented when Damien ended the kiss and sprang to his feet. He stood silently facing away from me. "Go in the house." He reached down and pulled me to my feet. "What about—" "Go!" he barked at me. Now I really was annoyed with him. First, he was talking about the stars, then he kissed me into oblivion, and now he was ordering me around. I walked off angrily into the house and almost slammed the door before I remembered that my parents were asleep. Not bothering to look at my window once I was in my room, I changed into my pajamas in the dark and went to bed. Then I realized that I had forgotten to brush my teeth and got up to do it. Focusing on my mouth made me think of the kiss with Damien. It had been a mistake, but it sure didn't feel like a mistake. It felt absolutely amazing. Despite that, I knew that the situation with him wasn't normal. He proved that to me without a doubt the next morning at school. I had decided that I needed to talk to Taylor before classes began. Damien approached me as I turned the corner into the hallway where she would be. I had no idea how he had found me, since her locker wasn't in the same area as mine. "You smell like the wild places," he told me, as he moved to stand intimately close to me. I looked into his intense green eyes. The wild places? Far away from civilization, he explained. The places where you can roam free. When have you been to a place like that? I asked. I haven't, he admitted. Then how do you know what it smells like? I questioned. I just do, he stated without explanation. You taste as good as you smell. I felt his breath on my lips as he spoke the last two words, because he had leaned even closer to me. Someone behind me protested when I backed into her in my haste to avoid Damien's kiss. Sorry, I called out, without taking my eyes off Damien. I don't have time to talk to you right now, I told him. He followed me as I began to walk towards Taylor's locker. What kind of panties are you wearing? I stopped in my tracks and whirled on him. The kind you'll never see. Don't bother coming by tonight because this isn't going any further. I saw them once, he said. Remember when Ethan pulled your skirt down in 9th grade? I certainly did remember that mortifying moment. It was the last time I had ever worn a skirt to school. The skirt I had worn that day had been a plain black pleated one that fell modestly to my knees. Nothing about it should have drawn attention to me. But one of the guys in Damien's crowd had yanked it down as I passed by him in the cafeteria, causing me to shriek and drop the tray of food I was carrying. Those jerks had erupted in laughter as I desperately pulled my skirt back up over my underwear. Ethan got a detention for that, but I was humiliated. Refusing to hide in embarrassment, I had auditioned for the school play and gotten a supporting role. I wasn't the lead, but performing on stage in front of an audience had restored my confidence. They were white, Damien reminisced with a dreamy expression. I've wondered every day since what kind you were wearing. I looked at him like he'd lost his mind. There had been nothing special about those panties, since the only kind I owned were regular cotton underwear. I had them in assorted colors, but that was as fancy as they got. None of the girls I've been with wore panties like that, he continued. They all had the ones from Victoria's Secret. What's that about Victoria's Secret? Do you have a secret wild side, Clarissa? Speak of the devil, it was that jerk, Ethan, smirking at me. Clarissa doesn't want you, Damien informed him. She's only attracted to me. Afraid of a little competition? Ethan challenged. I think she can choose for herself. She is leaving, I told them, and tried to sidestep Damien. Oh yeah. He pulled his t-shirt off in one of his swift moves. You were asking about my shoulder. The people around us hooted and made suggestive comments as my eyes moved slowly over his flesh. I walked around to inspect his back and brought my hand up to touch the smooth skin of his shoulder. It was as completely free of scars as the front. Clarissa? Finally, I saw Taylor as I let go of Damien and turned toward the sound of her voice. She looked just as shocked as I felt. You don't have to stop touching me, Damien said. I couldn't speak to reply. One sentence kept repeating in my mind over and over. He's a werewolf. He's a werewolf. Feeling like I was slipping into madness, I turned and ran away from him. I burst into the office and finally found my voice. I have to get out of here.